Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the Africa Brief on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top stories of this hour. Benin President Patrice Talon has praised the army for foiling a military coup attempt, with local media reporting 13 soldiers arrested as authorities work to locate hostages still held by the fleeing group. Talon has praised security forces for restoring calm in Cotonou after the failed uprising. According to a UN source, 100 kidnapped students from St. Mary's School in Niger State, Nigeria, have been released and moved to Abuja after being among the 315 abducted in late November. However, the fate of the remaining 165 students and staff still in captivity remains unclear. Egyptians abroad have started voting in the rerun of 30 constituencies, with polls reopening first in New Zealand today after previous results were annulled. NEA Director Ahmad Ben Dari has said that the rerun covers embassies and consulates in 117 countries, receiving voters in the coming 2 days. At least 7 people were injured when Russian drones hit an apartment block in Okhtyrka, northeastern Ukraine. Emergency crews rescued residents from upper floors, while others took shelter in the basement. US President Donald Trump has said that trade talks with Canada are ongoing, adding we'll work it out. He has met with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum to discuss the US-Mexico-Canada trade agreement ahead of its 2026 review. Thailand has launched airstrikes on Cambodian military facilities after both sides accused each other of violating a Trump-brokered ceasefire, with 1 Thai soldier killed and 4 wounded amid heavy border clashes. As Bangkok says 385,000 civilians are being evacuated, while Cambodia denies retaliation. India's aviation regulator DGCA has granted Indigo Airlines a one-time 24-hour extension to respond to a show cause notice issued on December 6. The regulator has warned that failure to comply by 6 p.m. on December 8 could lead to ex parte action. An Australian firefighter has died after being struck by a tree while battling a bushfire north of Sydney. More than 50 fires are burning across New South Wales, with authorities warning of a high-risk bushfire season this summer. Now for this hour, we start with Benin. Benin President Patrice Talon has informed that his government has been able to foil a coup attempt with the help of National Armed Forces, which was reportedly launched by a small group of soldiers and supposedly headed by Colonel Tigri Pascal. The Benin president's first announcement about the coup came yesterday, about 12 hours after the initial rounds of gunfire were reported in several neighborhoods of Cotonou, which happens to be Benin's biggest city. In a recent video address, the Benin president has thanked its defense and security forces for the necessary actions that they took to successfully contain the coup attempt. Let's listen in.
En coordination avec le commandement des forces de défense et de sécurité, engager les actions nécessaires au maintien de la paix en vue de garantir la sécurité et la quiétude de tous sur toute l'étendue du territoire national. Je voudrais ici saluer le sens du devoir de notre armée et de ses responsables qui sont restés républicains et loyaux à la patrie. Avec eux, nous avons fait front, repris les positions jusqu'à nettoyer les dernières poches de résistance des mutins. Cet engagement et cette mobilisation nous ont permis de faire échec à ces aventuriers et d'éviter le pire à notre pays. Cette forfaiture ne restera pas impune.
Additionally, a government spokesperson has briefed that 14 people have been arrested as of yesterday afternoon for their alleged participation in coup plotting. No details, however, has been provided yet. Now, as per reports, Benin's President Patrice Talon has been credited with reviving the nation's economy, but Benin has also seen an increase in attacks by jihadists, militants who have been already causing conflict in the West African region, particularly in countries such as Mali and Burkina Faso. Now, for this discussion, we welcome Ms. Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief in Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Ms. Alison, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how significant is this failed coup attempt, and is such partisan by national armed forces common in, particularly in West African nations?
Well, of the West African nations, Benin is considered one of the more stable democracies. And there hasn't been a coup attempt for about 34 years. So it is quite surprising, but also the coup attempt, which was put down quite quickly in a matter of hours. We note that Nigeria also sent in planes to help end the coup, to thwart the coup. And the African Union of Nations denounced the coup. But the coup comes actually as Patrice Talon, who is, as you heard, the French-speaking president. He is of the Christian, he is a Christian. The Muslims, which you mentioned, are a minority. I think they're about 27%. His term in office ends in April, so that's not very long away. He's been president since 2016, and he's already prepared a successor. So there are factions within the army that do not want to see his governance, his successor continue in this role, and would like to seize power. So I think that's the reason for the timing of it, is just months before he's due to leave office anyway. He has been criticized for not allowing enough free speech and not investing enough in health. Quite vague criticisms, really. I mean, they're probably real, but also quite vague. And I think it is a question of factions within the military would like Benin to have a more radical role, and not the sort of democratic role that the current president has been presiding over, President Talon.
Right. And building on that, as we also know that reports of increase in jihadist militants in this Benin reports has been coming. So what do you think, what are the underlying factors that are leading to this increase in jihadist militants?
Well, West Africa isn't the most stable of regions. Benin, among other nations, is considered relatively stable. It does have a Christian majority, but it does have there are a lot of Muslims there as well. And there are also jihadi elements. And these aren't just in Benin, which is not such a big country, but also in the neighboring countries as well. And they would like to create instability. They would like there to be more influence from Islamic groups. So Benin does not exist in isolation. There are countries around it which do have jihadist groups which would like to destabilize it, and they do not support the broadly democratic path that President Talon has put his country on, and they would like to undermine that, particularly as Patrick Talon's term draws to an end. So the country is expecting elections next year. So I think that is a point for the destabilizing at the moment, but it's also a regional problem with the jihadi Islamics in the region.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mutler, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now we stay in the region. West African forces are deploying to Benin to assist in containing an ongoing coup attempt, ECOWAS has announced on Sunday. Troops from Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, and Ghana are being sent to support the Beninese government and military in preserving constitutional order and national territory integrity. In a related move, Nigeria's Air Force has conducted strikes inside of Benin, according to a source in the Nigerian presidency, in coordination with Beninese authorities, while details of the targets remain unclear. An Air Force spokesperson has confirmed the operation was carried out under ECOWAS protocols and the mandate of the ECOWAS standby force. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Ms. Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief in Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Alison, for staying with us. Now looking at this again, what is and how is ECOWAS's role and intervention in particularly this shaping Benin's regional norm or Benin's stability?
Well, as I said, Benin is a small country in a not very stable region, but it is considered a source of stability. So the other African nations in the region are interested in maintaining that stability. They want more stability in their area so their economies can grow, so they can get tourism, so their countries can prosper and develop as nations. And so there is a broader interest in the region of maintaining stability in Benin, which is why we saw the Nigerian armed forces come in and make strikes. I mean, obviously that was welcomed by the Benin president, but also the other nations in the region. They do want stability. Why do they want stability? It's so that their nations can prosper and grow, and people become richer and healthier. They don't want instability, they don't want uprisings, they don't want more wars. So that is why they swiftly took action so that the coup could not be successful and take root, which would be another source of instability, not just for Benin, but also for its neighbors and the region.
And you know, ECOWAS has been effective, like you've mentioned, and swift in particularly about this crisis. But why is it very slow, or why is it not effective in other regions in Africa?
I'm not an Africa expert, but I do know that when there is a coup attempt, it has to be put down very quickly, because the moment it takes hold, you get factions within the government deserting to the other side. So that was very important. As for its role in the Pan-African region, I'm afraid I'm not an expert on the region, but what was clear that it did take action yesterday, and today as well, because there may be still lingering elements from the coup attempt. I heard 14 were arrested, but there are probably other elements as well. And we haven't heard of any casualties at the moment. But this was obviously an important thing for ECOWAS to do.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Ms. Alison Mutler for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Nigeria. Nigeria's government says 100 school children have been abducted last month in Niger State have been released now, one of the country's largest mass kidnappings in recent years. The children, along with 12 school staffs, were taken from St. Mary's Catholic Boarding School in Papiri on November 21st. 50 pupils escaped shortly after the attack. However, the whereabouts of the remaining children and staff had been unknown until now. Authorities and the Christian Association of Nigeria say they have not been officially notified of the release. However, the incident highlights ongoing insecurity in Nigeria more than a decade after the Chibok abductions. Now for this discussion, we welcome Major General Sudakarji. He's a retired and international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this again, how dangerous is this reoccurring pattern of mass school kidnappings, particularly in Nigeria? And what security measures should Nigeria make, or the Nigerian government take, so that this is not reoccurring?
Good afternoon, Asoma. Thank you for getting me for your show. A very interesting question you have asked. Two parts. First part, allow me to, in order to respond to the question, let's tell our viewers as to where is Nigeria, what's going on there.
Yes.
And if you have time, if you don't have time, then I can give a very cryptic answer. But the fact of the matter, it has to be understood in the larger perspective. The larger perspective is that Nigeria is a Western nation. It's a West African nation, and it has got largest it is the seventh largest populous country in the world, and it's got a very high birth rate, and the youth profile is pretty high. But it is going through very trying times of lack of economic development, poverty. Large number of people are below the poverty line. Literacy rate is not picking up. But importantly, people need to understand, firstly, the religion, classification of religion. There are Muslims, approximately 46 to 56%. Christians are around 40 to 46%. Then you have the minorities are in between in the center and elsewhere in the country. And the most important thing one has to understand is that the Islamic religion is predominantly towards the northern part of Nigeria, and Christianity is to the southern part. So southern part, southeastern portion of Nigeria is witnessing a very terrible insurgency, and the north and the central part of Nigeria is also experiencing a lot of insurgency or terrorism. But one thing has to be understood by our viewers, that Nigeria is hugging the border. You know, there is a corridor called a Sahel corridor. Sahel corridor has got 10 countries in it. Nigeria also figures in the Sahel corridor, which is predominated by the ISIS. And there is a sprinkling, not sprinkling, a good density of Al Qaeda also operating in this. So this abduction and all that we keep reporting, keeps coming in the media, is generally from the central and the northern portion of Nigeria. Now, who are responsible? So allow me, if you have time, otherwise I can cut it short. Very quick reflections about the terrorist organizations who are operating here. The first group is towards the northeast is Boko Haram. In short, it is called a JAS. And there are splinter groups of Boko Haram. Basically, they want the Islamic states to be spreading across the complete Nigeria, and they are dominating presently towards in the entire northern and central portion of West Africa province. In short, it is called as ISWAP. There is a second group which is dominating in the northern and central Nigeria. It's called Ansaru. Basically, they indulge in kidnappings and attacks across these two portions or the regions of the country, and they are jihadists. They all are fighting for extremist Islamic rule against the government. The third one is Islamic States West Africa Province, ISWP. It's a breakaway faction, active since 2016. And basically, they are not looking for controlling territory or resources. They are more strategic on governance than pure violence. And third, the last but one is a Al-Qaeda group. It's a Ansaru group, splinter from Boko Haram. They are responsible for kidnapping foreigners and military personnel and active in northern Nigeria. And there is a small little bandit group who are criminal gangs, and they are towards the northwest portion of Nigeria, known for kidnapping people and also holding them to ransom, as also cattle rustling. And likewise, you have herdsmen group, militia group, you have indigenous people, Biafra group, you have established Islamic rule, Boko Haram group, you have separatist groups. Likewise, there are so many of them. Rough count from my side is around 9 to 10, but it could be much more. But what I'm trying to highlight is, basically, people are not, they are not economically, livelihood is not up to the mark of the international standard. A large number of people are below the poverty line. There is hardly any education taking place. They are Muslim, and many of the families, they have more than 5 to 7 children. So this is actually being exploited by the terrorist organizations. That's why you have kidnapping and other things, demanding different things at different time. Mostly it is for the government's response or demands of booty from the government which has been actually predominating their demands. Now, this is picking up momentum towards the Muslim dominated areas, central and northern portion of Nigeria. Also, be mindful of the fact that it is a country produces large quantum of oil and gas. The GDP is not small, it is close to $806 billion. The per capita income, if you actually take, it is also not so low. But
Yes.
however, because of certain portions, lack of development and lack of government attention, and very
Yes.
close to the Sahel region, these kind of terrorist and separatist activities are taking place, who are demanding
Yes.
autonomous status or independence of portion of Nigerian country as such. Back to you, please.
Yes. Major General, you have covered it all. Thank you very much for sharing that insight with us. Please stay with us as we stay in the region. Now, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has requested more support from France to tackle rising violence in the country's north. French President Emmanuel Macron has said that France will strengthen its partnership with Nigeria and assist affected populations, particularly against terrorist threats. The request comes amid escalating attacks, including mass kidnappings from schools and churches, and ongoing clashes between herders and farmers. U.S. President Donald Trump has raised the possibility of military action, accusing Nigeria of failing to protect Christians, while the Nigerian government says all faith groups are being targeted. France, which has withdrawn troops from West and Central Africa, is expected to focus on training, intelligence sharing, and responding to Nigeria's requests for help. Nigeria has welcomed foreign support as long as its sovereignty is respected. Now we move on to our next news. Moving the focus to South Africa, South African authorities have withdrawn a 90-day visa exemption for Palestinians following the arrival of a charter flight carrying 153 people, which the government described as a part of a campaign of forced migration. Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Leon Krieber, has said that the flight, along with a similar one in October, was organized by Israeli actors allegedly seeking to relocate Gaza residents. And they have represented an abuse of the visa system as well as the passengers themselves. Authorities have expressed concerns that passengers could be left destitute upon arrival. The flights have sparked alarm among human rights groups who warned that such moves may be part of broader efforts to forcibly empty Gaza. Israel has defended the relocation, stating that the Palestinians left Gaza after approval was obtained from a third country. The controversy comes amid heightened international scrutiny, with critics warning that plans to permanently remove Gazans' more than 2 million residents would constitute as ethnic cleansing. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's an international affairs, relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, what could be the implications of South Africa's visa withdrawal for Palestinians, and do you think this was a necessary step by South Africa for making sure they're not taken advantage of, not by the Gazans, not by Israel, not by any group?
Yeah, Suma, very interesting subject, and you have raised a very important point.
Thank you.
I would say there is an issue related at the global level, there is an issue related at the regional, and there is also an issue related to the governance, global governance, rules-based international order. So let me tackle the global level. Global level, we all know that there is an ongoing conflict between the Hamas and Israel, and also a tremendous amount of effort is been undertaken or initiative taken by Donald Trump and his team to bring about normalcy and peace in the region. Also concurrently, and towards that end, there is a peace proposal, 20-point peace proposal, which has been mooted, and initial part has already been gone into the transaction or exchange of prisoners oblique hostages. The last one, I think it's underway, should be coming any time. So that's a significant achievement, and for which the compliments have to be given. But the bigger issues are the following. Firstly, Hamas have to disarm. Whether they disarm or not, it's $1 million question. And the second phase and third phase, likewise, it will go on. But the central issue which the global order has to decide, that are Palestinians authorized a independent nation or not? This somehow is not been loud and clear in the 20-point peace proposal. If you recall, you and me, both of us have discussed many times in these kind of panel discussions or in the past. They are silent on this. And also in 1997, there was a top secret document or a project which was initiated. It is yet to catch the attention of the people, and it spoke about the name of the project is Clean Break. The Clean Break is essentially the central theme of this project is that Palestinians have no place in the Middle East. If that is what the peace proposal has been based on, then I am afraid I have no comments to give, because it is going against the very understanding and the agreement. Israel was given an agreement in way back in 1948 by none other than the United Nations Security, the General Assembly and the Security Council. And also the Palestinians have been recognized in that. They are supposed to be. And time and again, number of times, including Oslo's agreement in 1993, the Palestinians are to be given a separate piece of land and the status of an independent country. Now, who's going to ask about that? So I am afraid it has not been catered for. And I think Donald Trump, since this report has come that people are being forced to go on migration to South Africa without visa, I am afraid neither it is ethical to undertake such practices, nor is it acceptable by a country like South Africa. And they are right in their own way. As per my assessment, they have withdrawn this 90 days of visa-free kind of movement, and I think they have a sovereign right to do that. However, there are some contrarian kind of views which come up, which shoot up on humanitarian perspective. Where do they go? The question is, where do the Palestinians go? There is no passport office or visa office in Gaza today. How do they carry out the kind of preparation of visas? So therefore, on landing, the visas will be prepared. But South Africa has been taken for a ride. They have not been consulted. It is not the first time. The first batch of some people came in the month of October. Second batch came in November. Now the third batch has come. So likewise, they will keep flooding in the Palestinians to South Africa. Have they been consulted? Has their concurrence been taken? So these kind of things, questions come up, which actually raise a very serious fractures in the system of governance of the global order. Is this on? I don't think so. It should not be practiced. It should not be furthered. But going on to the humanitarian point of view, it has to be looked into at the highest level. Now, who is going to look into this at the highest level? My only plea is that there is a United Nations organization, there is a human rights organization, Human Rights Watch, you have Amnesty International, you have International Court of Justice, you have International Criminal Court. Kindly look into all these aspects and come to a conclusion. Let people not be unnecessarily and unfortunately flown from Gaza and to places like South Africa without any prior information. The country has to prepare to receive them. This is not the way that we have to handle the people who are caught between the humanitarian crisis as also the conflict-ridden situation in the Middle East. This has to stop forthwith, and some practical and wise decision has to be taken on the place, not to displace them, not to vacate the Gaza. These are my personal views. Back to you, please.
100%. Major General, thank you for sharing that insight and educating us on the history behind what is happening right now in the Middle East, particularly with Gazans right now. With that, I would like to thank Major General Sudakarji for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now moving the focus on to Uganda, Uganda's opposition candidate Bobi Wine has said that he was beaten alongside his aides and his supporters by security forces while campaigning in the north of Uganda in an escalation of violence ahead of the presidential elections on January 15, 2026. Wine, a pop star turned politician whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, is challenging the president Yoweri Museveni for the second time after coming second in the last election in 2021. Meanwhile, Wine has also said that he was hit on his face with a cane and other supporters were also beaten and had to be hospitalized as they approached a campaign venue in Gulu, the biggest city in Uganda's north. However, a military spokesperson, Chris Magezi, has accused Wine and his supporters of forming an illegal procession and campaigning beyond the prescribed time. And that's a wrap on Africa Brief. Keep watching News 6 World for more news updates from around the world.